So I will start by just creating an API endpoint by dragging and dropping this component in here. Give me 1 second. All right.
And Alex, who would call
Yes.
this API, just to give me some context of like what would call the API? What kind of
Yes, so we think of that when we think of that, we think of embodiments. So embodiments are how you deploy it. You can use this API to power anything from a custom ChatGPT to a Microsoft Copilot, to a background process, to a webhook, to a front-end application, whether it's code or no code with Bubble. You can deploy it as a chatbot on your site. You can deploy it as a Discord, Slack. You can deploy it to different commercial interfaces like Siri and Google Assistant and the Meta Avatar Studio, so that basically your agent can live wherever you want it to be. The API is the most universal infrastructure to be able to communicate with other programs and interface with other platforms. So this is usually a building block for communication.
Okay, but it'd be like chat-based applications living on one of those platforms would call this for additional knowledge or information?
Yeah, all of that will become pretty clear on what they can do because it's much more powerful than a chatbot. But a very important use case is where you can integrate and expose your brand on all the different assistants. So we see the market. We see the market for consumers basically going towards your personal AI assistant, whether you're Camp Google or Camp Apple or whatever. And we see the future of websites being more like your brand is represented as a brand agent that almost like an app store for those assistants like Gemini, right? Like the Google Chrome extension store or the Apple App Store, but where your brand is able to talk to that AI assistant. So let's say your client sells hotel rooms or something, right? Your brand agent will be able to answer customers all their questions about the rooms, the rates, the availability, and help those AI assistants from Google, Apple, etc., answer real-time consumer questions. So that's the brand agent side. And then you have process agents, which can help with internal processes. I will not talk too much about it. I'd rather show it to you. I'll start with a simple example, but you'll start understanding really quickly what Smith can do for you as I'm going through this demo. Here's an example of an agent, right? So this particular agent has three skills: writing an SEO outline, writing a section, and posting to WordPress. And you can see here, this is an API endpoint. It has a function called create outline with a description. And you can immediately go to here, to embodiments, to API, and you can see it has already provided a server, an endpoint, and each endpoint has the parameters ready that you have defined here. So here we have key phrase, right? And then over here, you have a few more parameters. You can see this, they're all here. Now, the cool thing is that all of this is available with a simple drag and drop. You drag and drop these components in here. You describe what you want, but the moment you do that, there's already a server, there's already an API, and it's already functioning. To deploy this to production, all you need to do is go here to deploy, and you can add your version number, some description, and you can deploy it to your own subdomain. If you want to secure it, you can just add an API key here or deploy it with OpenAuth. Also, you can test your interactions with it via a chat interaction. And this will load both in debug mode and otherwise. And so here you can interact with it, and you can visually see in here, and I'll show you a few of our debug sessions. You can in here see how the components are all like flowing together and how the logic flows. Now, the really neat thing about Smyth is how easy it is to basically create just about anything that you can put your mind to. And with that, it means just like combining and chaining components together. So, for example, if I were to go here to this agent, like I could drag a classifier, and I could take an input and say something like like kid friendly or kid unsafe, right? And I can now put some input in here and say like something, a man dies and his blood is visible, right? So I can give an input. This would come here as an input parameter. It would be analyzing it with the model GPT, and then I can say here, kid unsafe is set to true, right? So I can now build these chains with these components. For example, I could send my my text to an LLM prompt. I can choose my model. I can have multiple inputs. For example, question, language, and I can now make my prompt and say, answer this question. And here you can see question in this language, right? And I can choose whatever model I want. It integrates with any AI model out there, any language model. And I just write my prompt. I use my input parameters. Very easy. To test this, I can do something like this. It's the capital of France, and I say in French. And obviously, that's a bad question because it's just going to be Paris, which is Paris. Sorry, I should have asked a better question. But you can see here how we use multiple inputs, and you can fully control the input and output. Now, what you can do with that is build a lang chain. You can connect the output of this to this. So one writes, one edits, one proofreads, one approves. You can build a tree of thought. So you can connect one input here to multiple AI models, different prompts, and you can do as many as you want in parallel, and you can see it will process those. And then you can have like another AI model, and you connect the inputs here, and you basically say, now pick the winner. So you can do that. You can call any API you want. It integrates with every API. Very easy. If you can make it work in Postman, you can work it with this. You can also run some code, run loops. It has the ability to look up data, like retrieve data from a vector database, remember data in a vector database, or forget data. And combine that with some of these functions here, you can do very good data transformation and like very good indexing. For example, here we let you add metadata and labels as you index, so you can retrieve it well later. And all of this is fully like automated. For example, if I click on data pools, you can here see I have, for example, SmythOS. That's a data pool. In here, there are there's some documents, some PDFs, some sitemaps. I can add my sitemap over here, and it will go and crawl that, or I can add a document over here, and it will index that, and it adds it to the vector store. So later on, if I want to look up some data, all I have to do is choose my data lake here, and say how many results I want back, and I can now use that to answer questions. For example, I could have something like here I have some input from here. So I use data from my data lake, and I have a user question over here, right? And so maybe I will start just here, and I will just, let me see. I'll do that. So I will want to search a question. So my input will be a question. And all I want to do here is I want to just echo that back. And I'll just echo this back here like this. Okay. So my reply contains the question. And I will send that question to the data lookup to get context. And I'll also send that to the AI model over here to get both the question and the context. And then over here, I'll say something like, answer the question, right, with a single paragraph. Use this context. Right, so that's, I can use any AI model. Maybe I'll use the Turbo 16K here. So what I can do now is I can hit debug and we'll again ask the question like, and it has to be about what's in my database. So what is the main benefit of using agents for automation? Right, I can run that. So this goes here to my data lookup. This one is a vector database. You can see the results here come back and are sent as input here. My question is sent here. So I'll run next step in my debug, and my reply will contain the one paragraph answer, the main benefit of using agents for automation. So this answer is now grounded in this. So to create a RAG here, that's a very simple use case. All I had to do was just like drag and drop my files here in my data source or my sitemap and have it index. And then I connect my my question to it, and I use an LLM to answer it. Right. So there's a bit of information you're still missing. So first of all, Smyth lets you coordinate and orchestrate intelligence. We're not an AI model provider. You bring your AI models, you bring your data, you bring your workflow. So with that said, we are not being made irrelevant next time GPT has an update or brings out Sora, right? Because every time a new AI model comes out, your orchestration capabilities become more powerful, right? So that's number one. Number two, the abstraction layer here is of the nature of agents, not RPA, not if this, then that. It's not code, it's agents. So the fundamental way that this works together is each component is like a tiny intelligent worker that communicates with other tiny intelligent workers. That means they can interpret what they need and communicate with each other for help within your workflow. That sets it apart from RPA, which is very brittle, cannot handle ambiguous inputs, and breaks all the time, making you more of a bot nanny than an automation expert. Then you get to the true revolution, which we have before us, which is agentic, right? Which is based on AI agents, based on intelligence. And when it comes to that, you have a few options in the market. You can code it yourself from scratch by using these APIs of these platforms, or you can use open source accelerators like LangChain, where you have to work within their predetermined structure, or you can use something like Smyth. With Smyth, we take care of your process from A to Z. First of all, we believe that visual interfaces are the way to go rather than code. We have been at the code stage, and even with LangChain, once you get to 30,000 lines of code and you're dealing with non-deterministic AI that can randomly fail or do weird things, you don't want to debug that with code. It's impossible. I mean, try it. It's just extremely hard to maintain, right? Second, we help people with very little coding experience with drag and drop. You can see here this from these base components. Then we go down. Agents are fully reusable. It integrates with every Hugging Face AI model, integrates with all Zapier's, and we can even support custom integrations. And this is, I was talking with Matt earlier. We actually are gearing up here with a whole integration library. We're going to have hundreds of integrations pre-built, anything you can possibly imagine, from like sending email to connecting to GitHub to Notion. It's already going to be there, drag and drop ready. And if something's missing, you can hit the request button and our team will add it. But basically, you drag and drop logic instead of coding. In a world where AI knows how to code, what is the role of a developer? The role of a developer is choosing what data to use and when, and in what order, and when to apply what AI model, and when to bring in different tools. That's the role of a developer, not babysitting code. So we believe that a visual interface, especially for complex workflows, is essential for both building and maintaining such code. For fun, we took one of these agents. It's not this one, it was another one. I put the functionality and capabilities of it on Upwork and asked for a fixed bid to make that. The estimations came back 5 months time and 5 to 12 months and somewhere between $40,000 and $120,000. But the person that had made that in Smith built it in an afternoon and had no coding background. That's how disruptive this stuff is, right? So if you look at something like this and you would say, make this in Zapier, I would say like, good luck, right? So you will not even consider that, because this is just not something that Zapier set up for doing this kind of relationship. And I'll take you actually through this agent and what this can do. But if you compare it to LangChain, we actually provide everything from A to Z, from building, designing, debugging, testing, deploying, authentication, encryption, and already pre-integrating with all these systems, fully drag and drop, teamwork, everything from A to Z. Smith already has built all that. So instead of coding it by hand, and we started this in March of last year, as soon as GPT-4 came out, and you can actually go and watch me on conferences online when I was speaking at that time about this stuff. We saw the problem and opportunity really early on. And we believe that for agencies, this is a total rewrite of the books, complete rewrite of the industry. Every company will need brand agents. Every company will need AI colleagues. And because you can deploy these agents in your Microsoft Teams or Slack and talk to them, and because these agents can use your Asana and your GitHub, and they know how to collaborate with each other and humans to get stuff done, they become like a workforce 3.0. And then on top of this, as agencies who are building solutions for clients, if you can do it in 1/10 of the time, think of how much money you'll save and how many more contracts you'll win. So instead of building things from scratch, you can just build them in Smith. And it's really at the speed of thought, because you're just slinging components here. All you're doing is just defining what the logic is, what you're hoping to see. Yeah. So like in this agent here, we take a meeting transcript. It goes to a classifier that determines if it was a sales call or an internal call. If it is a sales call, you see here, these lines are coming out from here. It will make a recap from the transcript, find a different speaker, talking positions, find next steps, build a closing strategy, draft a follow-up email that you can send to your client, put it all in a sales summary, and put it in your salesperson inbox. As soon as the call is over, the meeting note taker calls this endpoint here, right, via webhook. And all of this happens automatically, and the salesperson then gets an email say, here's everything you need to know to push this forward. But we didn't stop there. We figured, you know what, let's also go and get Google Calendar to tell me the email addresses of who was on the call. Then let's go and find out if that person is on HubSpot. And if they have not matched, let's create a brand new contact for this person on HubSpot so we can track our deal. And if it did match, let's get the deal info, get the lifecycle stage, lead score, deal amount, past history. And all of that here, you can see, feeds back into this box, which helps with the closing strategy. So this LLM here has, you can write this in GPT manually. You can go to HubSpot by yourself, extract all the content history, add the transcript, write your prompts, or you can just do it one time over here. And so this prompt here is able to create a closing strategy according to your prompt using both the customer's history and the transcript. So this is like an example of an agent that you can build here. Again, you could build this in code, but you'll spend probably a week or 2 weeks, or you do this in Smith, and a few hours later, you have a working prototype. And then debugging becomes easy because we already showed you the debugger, and you can see exactly how everything flows through it and where things succeed and fail.